Welcome to episode 24 of More Than Just Maps. I'm your host, Ollie Powers. This podcast was created with the intent to help anyone in the GIS field get from where they are now to where they want to be that your first job, a career move, or just improving your GIS game overall. On this week's episode, I finished my interview with Toby Soto of Soto Media. We chat about some of the differences between working in any level of government versus the private industry. We also dive deep into Tony's journey of GIS Success, the blog he started while struggling to find all the information he needed in one place. What started as munigovguy.com is today becoming one of the best places for GIS leaders to learn the skills that don't necessarily have to do with GIS. And we're back for part 2 of my interview with Toby. Welcome back, Toby.
Thank you for having me.
So last time we went into your background, kind of how you got started into GIS and dug a little bit into how to start networking there. So you're actually no longer in government, in local government. So you're no longer with the city or county. You, in fact, have your own consulting firm.
That is correct. So, after 28 years in public sector, GIS and the local government, I decided to go out on my own and started Soto Media. And so I help service GIS support and services to small to medium local government and agencies, providing white glove treatment of GIS. So it's great to take all that experience, of the 28 years and be able to apply it to the local governments, the little guys that don't have the large enterprise knowledge. And so I can come in there and take what I've learned and apply it to them, and that way they can easily get results fast. So it's been a joy to do that.
Yeah, when I was doing consulting myself, we did something similar. So I definitely understand that side. And it's kind of fun because you're not doing the same thing over and over again. You'll do this project here and this project there, and that's a lot of fun. And you are getting results out for people where it matters.
Yeah. And I like that variety, because sometimes, you can really get stuck into the day-to-day maintenance and operations.
Yeah.
And,
or even if you're just doing the same task over and over again.
Yeah, and dealing with the same problems over and over again because they never get resolved,
Mm-hmm.
But with consulting, it's like every project is new, it's a new set of people, a new set of requirements, new set of standards, new problems to solve. And so, it challenges you, but it's super rewarding too, because, once you have the finished outcome, whether it's an implementation or it's a web map or a survey or, whatever it may be, it's just like, oh gosh, this is great. I'd like to see, the fruits of your labor, so to speak.
Did you ever? So I actually have a chip on my shoulder because when, while in local government, I've noticed that you'll say something and people will not listen to you. But the second you say that as the consultant, people suddenly listen to you. Are you finding that?
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of funny because, when I was at the city of Lake Elsinore, I was the IT manager there for 7 years, and you would give these recommendations of, I want to do this, I want to do that. And, the city manager or your boss is like, I don't know, do we really need that? And then a consultant comes in and says, yeah, you should do this and do that. And it's like, yeah, I just said that. And now you guys believe him over me,
Yeah.
It takes out exterior validation, to move things forward. So
yeah, which is really frustrating because I'm now finding myself back in that boat, and I'm back in local government again. And just will recommend things. Oh, well, no. And then we'll have a consultant come and be like, hey, can you please tell them? And the consultant will say it and they'll be like, okay, sure.
Right.
And it's just the most frustrating thing ever.
I know. It happens so often. It's so often and common, so it's kind of funny, I come in and say, well, I recommend you guys just, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
We'll do that. Sure.
I'm like, really? Oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So part of your business is you also have GISSuccess.com, and that's more of helping the GIS community. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really started back in 2015. I created a blog, and it was called minigovguide.com. And really, it stemmed from being frustrated in leading GIS and having some pain points that weren't discussed amongst the community. And I just felt like, I'm searching the internet, not finding the answers I want. There's some leadership information that Esri puts out. There's some leadership information that Eurissa puts out, but there's really not like one centralized location where you can house this information and really go deep on subjects that aren't being touched that are pertinent to GIS leaders. And so I'm like, I'll just start a blog and start, writing about things that I'm dealing with and things that would help other people. Because I'm like, if I'm having these problems, if I'm having these pain points and trying to promote GIS or trying to get GIS, to get the attention of other departments, or, trying to increase my budget or trying to get resources and things like that, if I'm having those problems, I know there's a lot of other people that are having those problems too. So
100%.
Yeah, so I started writing about it, and my blog just started blowing up. I started posting it on LinkedIn, and started getting a following, and actually, it ends up becoming more of a community. So so I had a newsletter, and that goes out. I'm not as frequent as I should be, but just give out information, give out content, give out value to the community, and with nothing in return. Just hey, this is what I feel like is important. Here's some leadership frameworks that we've never been accustomed to, because when you're in local government, the last thing they're going to spend money on is teaching you leadership.
Yeah.
You basically are learning your leadership from your immediate supervisor, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee on that. And a lot of times people are promoted to leadership from a regular role, so they can do their task, and they're really good with the skills that they needed for that role. And suddenly you're tossed into a leadership role where you need a completely new set of tasks and skills that you're going to be doing, that nobody prepares you for.
No, exactly. And here's what happens in government too, is that, hey, John Doe here has been, at the city or county for 20 years, and he's topped out. Let's promote him to manager so that we can, up his scale. And it's like, but he has no leadership qualities. He's just been there longer, and so it's like, you got to deal with that. And it's like, well, that's my manager, and he doesn't have very good management skills. And so, I'm like, I got to find a better way. There's definitely other industries that have much better leadership qualities and ways of doing things. I'm like, why can't we do that here with GIS? Because, there are systematic ways, there's frameworks to make things work better. We just don't do it, and it's taken upon ourselves to do it, because the city or county isn't going to do it. So I felt like, there's a huge void here, and I'm going to fill that void. And so I just started writing about it, and I started talking about the 5 levels of leadership, and how that applies to GIS, and create this framework, and how to take your GIS team from good to great. What are some of the components, to make that happen, that most of us aren't thinking about, but we struggle with, how do we motivate our staff? How do we motivate other departments? How do we get, involved in projects way early in advance rather than at the very end? It's like, oh, hey, GIS, yeah, we're almost done with this project, but is there a way that you can get this data, merged into this application? It's like, holy smokes.
I had to deal with that very thing last month, where
it was done. Like IT wasn't even involved. Just the department decided to go ahead and just do it. They bought their own equipment, did the whole thing, implemented it, and then I got there was like, why did they do
Yeah.
this? And we ended
Yeah.
up redoing a whole chunk of it, and
Right.
it was
Yeah.
kind of
There's a
like a
whole set of
catch-22.
requirements that gets
Yeah,
missed.
yeah. It was
And
just
so,
it was. So yeah, I definitely feel that, and there's a very real problem that many people have.
yeah. And so you're jury rigging your GIS to help, fit an application that came in rather than making sure the application has the requirements to utilize GIS, So, and we're all suffering with that. And it's like, well, how do we get in front of that? How do we get in front of that so that, GIS has requirements so that when a new application comes in, those questions are asked. Like, okay, does it integrate with GIS? But how does it integrate? They say it integrates, but we have to export sheet files and import them in. Well, that's not integration.
Yeah.
So, so there's all kinds of things like that we talk about in the GISSuccess.com. And so, MuniGov Guide did go through a rebranding in like 2018, from MuniGov Guide to GISSuccess.com because it's just more noticeable. I wanted it to be less of a personal brand and more of a community aspect. And so that's why I went to GISSuccess.com. And then I met up with Wade Kloos. He's the enterprise systems director for Department of Natural Resources for the state of Utah. And I knew him from early on because he used to be our Esri rep when I was at Anaheim.
Okay.
And we met up at one of the user conferences and we were talking about my blog. He's like, gosh, we're at these leadership summits here at Esri, and it's like there's less than 1% of the attendance here at these leadership seminars, but it's one of the most important things, and so we're like, yeah, we need to get these hallway discussions out in the open. And so we started talking about webinars. It's like, hey, we should do a webinar, and bring it to the forefront. And that's how GIS Peer Success webinar started, so we decided, okay, let's use, Zoom, and we'll present a topic and it's all under our control. And, we'll see how this goes. And, I think the first one Wade did, it was on ROI, return on investment. And I think we got like 50 people to watch. And I was like, hey, well, it's got some legs,
That's
let's
50
keep
people,
going,
Yeah.
So that's a room full. So, a few years later, we're still going at it, and we get, a couple hundred people now showing up at these webinars. And
how did the leadership summit evolve from that? I'm assuming the leadership summit evolved from this, but how did that come about?
Well, that was like discussions early on when we started talking about doing these webinars. It was like, someday we want to have our own GIS leadership conference where it's just talking about leadership issues. And, that was pie in the sky initially because I'm like, well, when do we do that? Do we do that before the Esri conference, after the Esri conference, in a hotel or, at a WeWork, how are we going to try to pull that off? And so that was our ultimate goal. At some point we would get to that. And it just so happened that December of 2019, he and I were already talking about virtual summits. And so we were already, taking surveys from our attendees lists on their pain points and things that they would want to see at a summit. And so when March hit, it was like, guess what, Wade? We got to do it. We got to do it. There's not going to be an Esri conference. There's not going to be a leadership summit. So I think the time is right. Let's just do it. And so that's what we did. So for the next 4 months, we set it up and planned it to happen 3 weeks after the Esri conference. And it was a 2-day conference. We wanted it just very specific on certain topics, which was just developing a strategic plan. And then the second day was on leadership communication. And we had 15 sessions, about 12 speakers, and we had over 900 people registered for the virtual summit. So definitely exceeded our expectations for sure.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. I mean, I signed up, I did the paid version. It was well worth it. So for anybody listening, if they do this again in 2021, go ahead and sign up. Because it is well worth it. Well worth it.
Yeah, and it's we're going to have 2 for 2021. Okay. So we're looking in May for the first one.
Okay.
And then maybe August, September for the second one. And so it'd be pretty much the same format, 1 or 2 topics per each summit. So we can really do a deep dive. Each session would be 20 minutes because after 20 minutes, you lose your concentration. You lose what you're learning. So that's very important that we keep them short and concise. And, give gaps in between presentations so that people can decompress and, take in what they learned and go grab their coffee or go grab their drink and, come back and join us. So it was, it just seemed like the combination worked really well, because you go to other conferences, other virtual conferences, and they touch a little bit of subjects about everything, from, building a survey 1, 2, 3 to, leadership to LiDAR to aerial photography to, it's just like, you're trying to appeal to everyone, but then you appeal to no one, and so we were like, okay, we're going to be very precise on the topic, and that's all we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And so, on the flip side, someone might ask, well, okay, how much do you have to talk about this topic? But every single person who talks about it is going to have different experiences and different lessons that they've learned that they can pass on. And that's really important because speaker number 1 might not connect with me, but speaker number 3, they're speaking my language. And right. Now you might be saying similar things, but if you're all talking on the same topic and everybody's telling their story their way, you're definitely going to hit your audience because you've got that variety on the one topic. Right.
You hit the nail on the head right there, because you may have someone that talking at the state level, someone talking at a county level, someone talking at a city level, someone who has a big team, and someone who is a one-man shop or a one-person shop, and so having that perspective from different angles, will touch somebody in some way, and give content and give value.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you can't learn something from speaker number 1 or 2. There's always going to be, even if you're getting one little nugget of wisdom out of them, that's worth it. It's always worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been a joy. I've really enjoyed the GISsuccess.com. It's really given me a sense of community that has been longing, I think, for a long time. It's worldwide. It's not just within a particular geographic area. So you get a lot of different perspectives, from New Zealand to India to Spain to the US to Canada to, all over, Southeast Asia, so we get all kinds of different perspectives. And it's really interesting to hear everyone's story, and their pain points, because everyone has different issues to deal with. And so we try to address them in some way, whether it's during the Peer Success webinar or through a blog or, through the summit. We try to address what our audience is really having problems with.
Yeah. So on topic, off topic, if someone's new to the GIS industry and they're getting in and they're starting to learn their technical skills and they're getting a little bit proficient, people who I've talked to have unanimously said it doesn't matter what your job title is, you can always be a leader no matter where you are. Mm-hmm. So for these people who are they're learning, they're getting good at what they want to do, how would you recommend for them to start doing leadership training immediately, even though their first priority is going to be learning their technical skills first? But how much of the leadership side should they be taking in early?
I think you can never start early enough. That's my logic. Because you're always going to be learning the techniques from whether it's other people or through instructional or through other conferences and other means. You can always learn something from that. Even if it's just trying to motivate your fellow employee, to get through this job or deal with a certain situation. Just having that skill set in your back pocket, it just makes you that much more valuable. And as you're trying to move up in the organization or at a different organization, having that knowledge of leadership in your back pocket, to be able to present that, also makes you more valuable too. Even though you may not have constituents under you, you still know the inner workings of how to be a leader, how to talk to other departments, how to organize a project, how to set up an agenda, how to, conduct a meeting, just learn those little elements. They start to add up, over time, and they get refined over time too. So you can never start early enough.
One of the things I remember when I first got into local government, our manager would always be looking out at the new technologies. This is not a bad thing to do, but he was always so far out there and coming up with these ideas and stuff. And I always remember thinking, okay, I'm not ready to get into management yet. I wasn't, but not for that reason. For me, it kept being like, okay, I have to look at new technology and see what's going to be coming in the future, and then I have to figure out that stuff. And I just stressed myself out with that so much that I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't really focusing on the here and now, and I was getting so stressed out over that. So how do you look at like future technology and how that's going to affect the industry or what you're doing now?
Well, some people like to have this like 5-year, 10-year plan, and to me that's too far out. Technology is moving too fast to really have a 5-10-year plan. I would say go out, maybe 2 years, because that's something that is attainable, it's manageable, and it's not so far out there it's a stretch that it ends up being a risk. So I would look at about 2 years out, where is it that you want to be, or where does your organization want to be, and create a roadmap to get you to that point. Okay. And so the roadmap is going to tell you, okay, if we want to get from point A to point B, we need certain technologies to happen. If I'm like in work group, type enterprise environment, I need to, take it to the next level of enterprise, because now I need multiple editors, because I'm going to have other departments doing GIS work, so you plan ahead in that way. Also resources, skill sets, what does my team have as a skill set? Where are they going to need to be in 2 years to help support this new technology that we know that we're going to have to deal with? And then set up a plan so they can develop those skills to get to that point. So,
and would that include soft and hard skills?
Absolutely. Soft and hard for sure.
Because I can know from experience, if your GIS team is supporting like a software implementation for your organization, people are going to be coming to your GIS team, and your GIS team is going to become the help specialists. And
right.
One of those soft skills you need to have is, I don't know that patience is a soft skill, but it's definitely a skill that you need to have.
Listening is a huge skill.
Yeah. Just dealing with people in general, and not everyone's going to be a joy to deal with. You're going to have people who are going to be pretty nightmarish who you're going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
And just learning how to handle all that on top of all the technical stuff. I think that's something that people forget a lot about.
Yeah. Well, I've always told my staff too, I'm like, you are the face of GIS. You're the front line. When people have questions about GIS or have problems, and these are people from other departments, they're coming to you. And so you need to have your game face on. You need to be listening. You need to be compassionate. You need to have empathy for what they're doing, because they're not GIS experts. You're the GIS expert. So you need to remember that, they may not know where all the commands are or all the lingo and all that. So, you need to be empathetic about that. And so that's those soft skills, listen to what they're saying, don't talk over them. Don't tell them what they absolutely need right off the bat. Let them discuss and tell you what their problems are and bring it back to the office. Let's have a roundtable about it, before we present them with some sort of solution. So some people have diarrhea of the mouth, and it's like, dude, you got to stop talking. You just got to listen, because you're throwing us under the bus for things that we can't do. And I don't want to have to go back and say, I'm sorry, we can't do that. So listen and bring it back to camp, and let's talk about it before we commit. So yes, development in hard skills and soft skills within that 2-year time frame is really important, because if your plan is to integrate GIS with other departments, your team's going to have to know how to teach those other departments how to use the software. So there's the teaching element. There's finding the requirements, doing needs assessments, things like that. Those are those soft skills that are needed to be able to be successful in implementing GIS in other departments.
For sure. So one more thing I want to chat with you quickly about is, so not only are you doing GIS consulting, but then you're also having to do kind of like the businessy side of your own business. You don't have somebody telling you, go work for this place. You're having to go out and get that stuff yourself. So how was that transition going from local government to being self-employed and just having to learn this whole new set of business skills, essentially?
It's a nightmare. No, it was hard. Running your own business is not easy, and especially if you don't already have clients set up. If you already have clients set up and you transition out, you're good. It's like, okay, you have some stability there. But when you go out cold turkey and you're just like, all right, I gotta rattle the trees and shake the bushes, to let people know, hey, I'm in business, that's a lot harder. And so it took quite a few months before I even got my first paying job. And so, you're dipping into your savings, you're dipping into things, you're just like, oh my God, is this even going to work? Am I going to have to go get that office job again? But here's the power of networking. I reached out to a lot of people that I knew locally and let them know that, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm out there now. I'm now a consultant, and so my services are available. And they may not have something, but they know someone who does. And that's what happened, is that by letting people know I was available, they let me know of other people that needed my services. And so I reached out, and I was able to make those connections and start having service contracts for GIS support. So very thankful to those people, and very thankful that I had those friends and those people that I networked and kept in touch with for many, many years. And so that's how that materialized. And so it's still not easy. I mean, it's like feast or famine. I mean, there's sometimes where I'm working, 50-hour weeks, and then sometimes it's like 0. It's like, oh boy, I'm
I don't know which one's worse.
searching for another contract, and it's like, you're the sole provider. It's like, oof, it's nerve-wracking, without a doubt, but, I've been at this now, I think I'm on my 3rd year, and, it's getting a little bit easier. It's getting a little more stable. COVID did not help at all.
I bet.
Which is interesting, because when COVID hit, I thought, oh man, this is going to be bad. I'm going to lose everything here. But actually what happened for like the first few months, everyone was going gangbusters in GIS, because they had to have social distancing and, keep from people from coming to City Hall. And so now you have all these web services and GIS web apps and all this kind of stuff. So I was working like crazy for like a few months there, and just now it's like, okay, now cities are starting to hurt and they're starting to pull back. And it's like, okay, here we go. Here's the dip, and just as soon as you hit the dip, it's like someone else pops up and says, hey, we need this. It's like, oh, good. Okay. Whew. We're good for a few more months here, and so it's a constant battle, but it's a work in progress because when you're in GIS and you work for local government, these are things you don't worry about at all.
Nope.
You have no worry in the world. It's like you always have work to do. There's always maintenance to do, and you always have a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. And so this running a business is a whole new set of skills that I've had to learn and grapple with, and get into promoting and advertising and through my own webinars and things like that to help drum up business. And so it is a different way of doing things. I never liked being that salesman or that car salesman, and so I shy away from those type of marketing tactics. I'm more of the show like case studies and things like that, and dealing with people's pain points and going from there, rather than saying, hey, I can sell you this.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to solve your pain,
I was about to ask, are you more of the I want to sell you something, or more of the I can solve your problem kind of person?
I can solve your problem kind of person. But first, you got to have that discussion for them to even tell you what the problems are. So you have to, put yourself out there and, ask the questions like, what are you dealing with? What's going on? And then, there may be times where, hey, I can't help you, but maybe this guy over here can. And, they'll always remember that, you were sharing, your resources of other people to help them, and so that reflects good on you. And so it's just kind of like that good karma kind of thing.
Yeah.
It eventually comes back,
Yeah, it might not be instant, but when you really need it, somehow it just pulls it out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the other thing too is that GISSuccess.com, we're trying to monetize that as well. And so I do have one online course, which is how to take your GIS team from good to great. And I'm going to have a few more courses coming out this year as well. They're more workshop style rather than courses. I think people like to have really more short and concise workshops rather than long, drawn out, multi-week courses, because then you start to lose motivation and drive. But if you have the workshops, it's instant gratification because I completed it, and move on to the next. And so,
yeah, especially in the day and age that we're in now, where you're just glued to a computer all the time because we can't go out or should not be going out.
Yeah, and the leadership courses that are out there, they're expensive.
They are.
And I know that when I was in local government, they would never pay for that. They'd never pay $1,000 or $1,200 to go to the GIS Leadership Academy.
It's a lot more now.
Yeah, it's like you're on your own, buddy. So, but I could afford something that's $50 to $100.
Yeah,
that's a lot more attainable, and it's a little bit easier on the budget. So I'm kind of filling that void right there that no one else has.
Well, this was awesome, Toby. I'm glad we got to chat and got to pull some good nuggets of wisdom out of you there.
Awesome.
This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. Thank you for having me. It was a long time coming. I know we've scheduled, rescheduled, and I'm glad that we finally sat down and had the discussion.
Yep. Thanks so much.